Hello and happy Sunday. Sorry for the delay, but something was going on with the connection on Facebook. We resolved it. Happy Sunday, everyone. Happy brand new day to see brand new miracles and brand new things coming about. I am Coach Yolanda, certified spiritual life coach, owner of Evolving Spirit Wellness, and we meet here every Sunday at 1 Eastern Standard Time to have some meditation, some discussion, some thoughts, some feelings. Whether you are watching live or watching via replay, please let me know that you are here, either in the comment section, or if you got my number, send me a text message. I get to see all things, and feedback is very important to me. And I'd like to know how you are doing, how you are feeling, and if our conversations are supporting the healing that you are doing. I know it's supportive for me, which is why we have to be here every Sunday at 1 o'clock. It's not just for you, it's for all of us so that we can talk about things that are going on with us. When you leave comments, it always resonates with something that I happen to be going through. And so I hope today's conversation does that as well. We have been talking about the 8 month to 3 year old age range of development. And so, for all of us who have any memory of that time in our life, congratulations if you can remember being that young. But even if you don't, there are particular things that we learn during that period of time. So you don't have to have an actual conscious memory of when you were 18 months, when you were 2, when you were 3 years old. You do not have to have that conscious memory for that memory to still be in your consciousness. And so, as we are always talking about our consciousness, meaning the state of being and how we think about ourselves and how we think about the world that we live in, we have to look at all areas, not just the things we remember, but those things that probably were going on during that time frame to see if we can get to the root of some of the issues that might be coming up for us as adults. And so that's what inner child healing is about, looking back so that we can look forward. And so some of the things that we learn, that we absorb, and that we internalize at this developmental stage can be the energy, the emotion of shame and our self value. Because this is the time when your language is developing the most. When you think about a little tiny baby, hasn't been here quite this that long, by the time you are 3 years old, you are gathering up so much language and developing so much language. You're putting things together. You absolutely start to identify that this thing means that thing. And if I use my voice, if I communicate my needs, my wants, and my desires, they might be fulfilled. They aren't always, but those types of connections start to be made in the brain as we develop around this age and stage. And so, as your language is developing, you may also be developing language around who you are in relation to other individuals. And for most of us, for most humans, this is where we start to develop an idea or a theory around: am I being good? Am I being bad? Am I right? Am I wrong? Because so much, when you think about toddlers, so much is about the behavior of toddlers and trying to line it up with acceptable social norms. All of what little people are doing is constantly being judged and criticized and valued. And so your own self value starts to develop around this age. Hey, Miss Giselle, so glad you could make it. And I trust that all things are going well with you. And so when we look at this developmental stage, 18 months to 3 years old age, this is where criticism, judgment, punishment, discipline, all of those things start to align. Your language development and your feeling of independence. Once toddlers start walking and they recognize I can move on my own, I don't have to wait for someone to pick me up and take me places, I can discover what's going on in my world all by myself. And we start to discover that some things are not to be touched, some places are not to be gone to. This is where our caregivers start to surround us to make sure that we're safe. It's not that they're trying to disrupt our development, but as a caregiver, and I know even as a caregiver of my grandbaby girl, my job is to make sure that she is safe and that she returns to her parents in the same way that I found her. But what happens oftentimes when you're young, you don't understand that everything is for your good. Hell, sometimes as an adult, we don't understand that sometimes the limitations and the protections that people put in place are for our good. I know that I don't like to hear when someone tells me no, even if the no is necessary for my own development and for my own safety. And so, because we've been talking about safety and trust, sometimes as a little person, you don't always understand that when your caregivers are telling you, no, don't do that, it's for your own good. And you can internalize that as something is wrong with me. So it's not always the trauma that creates the energy of, am I doing things right or am I doing things wrong? Sometimes, and oftentimes, it's the very things that are built in place to keep us safe that cause us to internalize that there's got to be something wrong with me. When the language starts to develop and you hear someone say, I don't want to have to tell you that again, You could internalize that as, I don't know how to listen, instead of, I'm a toddler, I'm a child. My attention span is not that great. So, yeah, you have to repeat things over and over and over. But as children, we don't always understand that. Again, as adults, I don't always understand why people keep telling me the same thing over and over and over. It is part of the human experience that sometimes we don't think people are listening to us, or we have the experience of not being seen, not being heard, so we become repetitive. When we're children, we don't always understand that the reason our caregivers are saying things over and over and over is because it's important and they want to keep us safe. But we can internalize that as, there's got to be something wrong with me. Or you can get mixed messages. And I will raise my hand and know that I am guilty. When my granddaughter is over here, she probably gets away with things that she doesn't get away with at home. And so then there's that misinformation. Oh, I can do this over here, but I can't do that over there. That's sometimes hard for little people to understand. And so again, we start to internalize. It's got to be something wrong with me. If these caregivers say it's okay and that caregiver says it's not okay, instead of us as children realizing that the adults are not always consistent, we start to internalize, there's got to be something wrong with me. Or maybe I'm just not good all of the time. Now, at the extreme, and I have to talk about the trauma that can happen at the extreme. At one end, we can have the helicopter parents. If you had the experience of having those type of caregivers who watched your every move, everything was scheduled, everything was a criticism and a judgment. You're not doing this right. You got to do this, you got to do that. If that was in your life experience at the extreme, then you could also have, as an adult, challenges with hearing no, always hearing no, other people telling you what you need to do and not trusting yourself and thinking you're not enough. At the other extreme, if you had the experience of neglect, abuse, abandonment, you may also have challenges with self regulation because there was no guidance. Good morning, my love. How are you? If there was absolutely no guidance during the time of development, then you may also, as an adult, be challenged with knowing what's right, what's wrong. Am I right? Am I wrong? And so the reason we are looking at shame and self value is because we have to go to the root of what shows up as an adult. So, for those of you who, again, are watching live or, please, if any of these resonate with you, you can either raise your hand or say, I know what that experience is like. So, for those of us who have difficulty with setting boundaries, either for ourselves or for other people, I'm going to raise my hand on that one, that could have a root in this developmental stage because you could be, as an adult, challenged with setting boundaries if you didn't have any boundaries when you were 18 months to 3 years old, or if everything was a daggone boundary. If everything that you did was met with criticism and judgment that made you feel as though you weren't enough, as an adult, you may not do well with boundaries because your whole life felt like it was one big boundary. Or at the other extreme, if no one ever showed you what a boundary was, meaning because you were either neglected, abandoned, or people just weren't paying attention, and you were just doing whatever you wanted to do, you may be challenged with setting boundaries for yourself or when other people set boundaries. Next week, we're going to talk about the word no, N-O, complete sentence. I know how I feel when I hear people tell me no. I don't like it. And I know how I feel when I have to be the one to say no. I don't like it. And I know that the root of that can be found in the way that my caregivers treated. There was a lot of differences between my mother and my father in terms of what they allowed me to do and what they did not allow me to do. I had the unique experience of being raised primarily by my dad because he was retired from the military and my mother worked outside of the home. My daddy let me do whatever I wanted to do. Mommy came home and set the boundaries. And so with one parent, I could get away with everything. With another parent, I couldn't get away with anything. And so that set up this relationship with sometimes I'm okay with boundaries. Thank you, mommy. Sometimes I'm not okay with boundaries. Thank you, daddy. And so as an adult, I've had to learn how to regulate myself and how to regulate when I need to set boundaries. And there comes a lot of shame out of that. Sometimes I'm ashamed to tell people that I don't have no boundaries. Sometimes I'm ashamed to set the boundaries because I'm thinking, are people not going to like me if I say no? And in those moments when I have to say no, I'm also thinking, I don't care if they don't like me. I have to do this to remain safe. So you see how these things, not having that regular development of self-regulation, can show up in our lives as shame. So how many of us are living with not enoughness? Because what shame really is pain. It's I'm wrong. It's I think I'm wrong. I feel I'm wrong. I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong. And so when you are faced with choices, you may come from it with the lens of, I got to be right. I want to be right. I'm not sure if I'm right. I'm not sure if this is the right choice. And that can lead to shame. Shame isn't always something that you feel with other people. Sometimes it's our own shame. Giselle's saying, working on letting go of shame due to unrealized goals and visions. Instead, practicing grace and trying to understand and use the lessons of that which is still unrealized. Let me tell you, the origins of the unrealized goals and visions, again, sometimes we internalize the goals and visions of someone else. It could be as small as, I want you to know all of your ABCs and numbers by the time you start kindergarten, and that pressure that we put on young children to realize our vision and our goals. Right now, I'm working with a child care center, and everything is about developmental skills and strategies. We want babies of this age to be able to do this. We want children of this age to be able to do that. And when those goals and visions are unrealized, when those developmental milestones are not met, everyone is in a panic. That can start as young as birth. We want babies to be chunky and fat and roly poly. And when they come in underweight, everyone is alarmed because we have charts and we have diagrams of what normal is supposed to be. And it can start so young and continue on through our lifespan. And so, as adults, the unrealized goals and visions that we have for ourselves can be connected to the unrealized goals and visions that were set for us by other people. So, we've got to be very, very clear where the beginning, the origins of our vision creation and our goal creation come from. How hard are you on you if you don't meet a particular standard? How hard are you on you if you're not doing what the world says you're supposed to be doing? How many of us have rushed into choices because the world said you're supposed to be married by this age, you're supposed to have 2.2 kids, you're supposed to have this type of education, you're supposed to have this type of job, you're supposed to have this type of income. The world will dictate sometimes where we're supposed to be in life, and then we internalize that as shame if we haven't met those milestones. It's not something that started last week, last month, last year. It is something that, as part of the human experience, we have been dealing with since the beginning of our existence here. How do you measure up? And if you are not measuring up in the way that society, your family, your friends, or even your own internalized realizations, if you're not measuring up that message of I'm wrong, how come I'm not where my peers are? How come I'm not where I thought I was supposed to be? How many of us can actually say we are doing what we thought we were going to be doing? And how many of us have realized what we thought we were going to be doing wasn't even really our vision and our goal? It may have been what was expected of you. So much of what we internalize are other people's expectations. And it begins in this developmental stage where you are becoming independent, where you are learning your own language, where you are learning self control, where you are learning how do I explore the world outside of myself. All of the information that you are receiving becomes part of your self value. And so, if you feel as an adult that the level of self value that you wish you had for yourself, whether it's your confidence, your courage, like we talked about last week, if it's not where you desire it to be, again, it's not something that just started. It's not something that just sprung up. It is something that could have its origins in this birth to 3-year old developmental age and range. And if you can give your inner children something now that you may not have gotten when you were younger, then perhaps we can start to heal some of those wounds of internalized shame. That is not to say that there aren't things that go on as adults that we are ashamed of. Sometimes we do things because maybe we are not thinking clearly, or maybe we are not feeling our best, and then we, boom, shoot into behavior that does not align with who we believe ourselves to be. Again, there is an origin in that. How you respond or react to things may have its origins in how you responded or reacted, or the behavior you modeled when you were a young child. Anywhere there is a disruption of your development, of particular accomplishments in your life, no matter how big, no matter how small, if there was a disruption, it can become something that you absorb. We love to congratulate and applaud humans, no matter how old, when they do something that is pleasing to the rest of us. When we see behavior that we don't like or doesn't align with our vision of what a good person should be, we also will be right there to tear people down, whether that's our intention or not. So let's say something meant so much to you when you were a child and you were so excited about it, and you went to the people that you loved the most and you're like, look what I did. And if you were met with a, that's great, or that's all you did, sometimes that's all it takes for us to internalize that not enoughness. Or, yeah, that was good, but you could have done that. Or, yeah, that was good, but your sister did something greater. All of those things start to pile into our self value and how we feel about ourselves. But the great thing, the good thing, the wonderful thing as an adult, you can start to dismantle that stuff. The competition, the comparison, that not enoughness. We got to wipe that away, because that becomes the shame that interrupts and disrupts the healing that we're seeking now. So think about those moments when you were younger. It may not have been something, again, a memory that you have from 18 months to 3. It could be 10-year-old you, 12-year-old you, 15-year-old you that was excited about something that meant really, really significant to you, that may have been dismissed or not even paid attention to by those that whose judgment meant the most to you at that time. You could still be internalizing that as something was wrong with you, or you didn't do enough, or it wasn't good enough, or it wasn't great enough. If it meant something to you, then it was valid. Same thing as now. Sometimes I accomplish something. To somebody else, it may not seem like a big thing, but to me, it means a lot. And I notice that sometimes in those moments, I don't want to share it with anybody else. Because if they're not as excited about it as I am, I can feel and hear the not enoughness tape playing in my head. Or I may tell myself nobody's going to love it as much as I do, or nobody's going to get it, or no one is going to be as excited about it. So sometimes I internalize that the good things that happen in my life are only good to me, and I don't share them with other people. That also comes from not having everything be a big deal to the people in my life, my caregivers. Doesn't mean that they were horrible people. It just means they had their own stuff going on. So me coming in the house with some mud pie that I made may not have meant that much to them, but it meant something to me. I will be the first to say that I don't think that every single thing that our caregivers did was intentional and malicious, and they just did a horrible job at raising us. I believe that we all do what we can do with what we have at the particular time and level of our consciousness. But I absolutely know and absolutely believe that there were milestones in my life that someone else missed, that there were things in my development that could have used a little special sauce on them, and I didn't get it. And I know that because of those moments as an adult, I have to give myself those things now. I have to make a big deal about the accomplishments in my life. I have to make a big deal about the vision and the goals that I have set for myself. I have to make a big deal about them, because if I'm waiting for the world to applaud for me, if I'm waiting for other people's approval, then I'm just going to be sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So let's go over some other things that may be showing up for us as adults. All my extreme people pleasers. Let me tell you something. Little people, I see it every day. Little people love to be the center of attention, and they love approval. That has an origin of I want people to applaud me and make me feel like I'm doing things right. I need external validation. Little kids love it, and they need it. And guess what? As an adult, you need it too. And so sometimes that can turn into extreme people pleasing, where you're saying yes to things you don't really want to say yes to, when you're making sure that everybody else is good and sometimes denying yourself that same regard. So, all of my extreme people pleasers, let me let you in on a secret. It happened so long ago when you were a little person, because you learned that when you do good things, you get attention. We also learn as kids that sometimes when you do not so good things, you also get attention. Sometimes it's negative attention, but children value attention. They don't even care what kind of attention it is. They need it, they thrive off of it. It is a human experience. Because we are developing language and we don't have the language to say, hey, pay attention to me, or hey, I need some love, I need a hug, I need reassurance, we will behave particular ways to get that feedback. We don't know that when we're little. We don't know that we should tell some people, I need a hug. Sometimes we'll act up so that we get attention. And sometimes the attention that we get may not be correlating to the attention that we need, but if we are starved for attention, we don't care. So sometimes as adults, we learn if I act up, I'll get the attention that I deserve and that I need. That's not always the way that it happens. And so as an adult, you have to tell your little people, ask them, are you looking for attention, and what attention do you need? Do you need reassurance? Do you need validation? Be honest with yourself. Do you need love? Do you need affection? Do you need care? Do you need recognition? And if you are unable to give it to yourself, have you created relationships where you know you are going to be poured into? Have you created relationships where you know there is a reciprocal energy of people pouring into people? Or do you have to go to extreme measures to get your need met? And sometimes those extreme measures are the people pleasing, instead of learning how to ask for love, learning how to ask for recognition, learning how to ask for. We seem to think that there's something wrong with us if we need attention. No. Very similar to a plant that you put in your house. If you don't pay attention to that plant, it's going to die. We as humans, if we are not paid attention to, we will start to wither away just like a plant. And I really wish that we could get away from the message that somehow needing attention is a horrible thing. Now, where it can get imbalanced if you constantly need attention, that's at the extreme. If you feel like you constantly need attention, or you always have to be in particular relationships, or you feel like you're needy, that might be a call to you as an adult that there may have been some things that you didn't get when you were younger that you need now, but you might not know how to ask for it appropriately. The other extreme of that is for all of my loners. That would be me. If you feel like you are challenged at being in relationships because you just love isolation, you just love being alone, let me tell you something. None of us was created to live in isolation. But if you find that you are living that way, or you have created a life in isolation, then you might need to look back to this age, stage, and range to say and to see, was I neglected when I needed it most? And so now I don't know how to be in relation with people. Did I rely on myself so much that I feel like I am the only person that I have? Sometimes we can get into that extreme independence because we learned how to be extremely independent, because our caregivers may have failed us, because we didn't learn how to be with other people, because we spent so much time by ourselves. We think that that is traditionally the way that we're supposed to be. And if you have been able to function in that way, your brain could be telling you, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be by myself. I don't need to be around people. I don't need to interact. I don't need it. I am here to tell you that is an extreme way of living. That is you neglecting you. And also, what are you saying about yourself if you feel like the only person that you can connect with is you? Take a look at your self value and what you might be saying about yourself if you don't believe that you can create healthy relationships with other people. For those of us who are fearful of responsibility, sometimes it's not always negative. Sometimes we're afraid of our visions, we're afraid of our goal because the responsibility of you being successful might be too much. I just had a revelation this week in talking with my business coach about why I'm reluctant and resistant to do particular things in my business. And I heard as clear as day, because you're afraid of how successful you could really be and the responsibility that comes along with it. So sometimes those unrealized goals and visions that we have for ourselves, it's not because we think we're going to fail. It's because we're afraid we're going to succeed. And what does that mean? Who do I have to be? If I'm now successful and it calls me to a higher place of being, can I meet that standard? Go all the way back to birth, to age 3. Maybe you did not have a healthy example of success in your family. If you are the first of many things in your family, first to go to college, first to open a business, first to live by themselves, first to be independent, do you know how many adults I meet who are the first in their family to live on their own, have their own home, have their own apartment, because they did not see it in their family structure? You could internalize that success is not what we do in this family. And therefore, who am I to think that I could be successful? If my mother and father weren't successful, if my grandparents weren't successful, who am I? Marissa is saying this resonates deeply. I'm telling you, I'm right there with you. You know, my mother always wanted to start her own business. The business that she wanted to start was so grand that my father was like, nope, we can't do that. She wanted to own her own apartment complex. He said no. And so my mother sold Tupperware, Avon, Princess House. She did every other little business that she could do because she never got to realize the one that she really, really wanted. So I internalized that as we can only go but so far. In this family, we may have big dreams, but no one really took the step to make those dreams realize. So let me settle for what I can do because I never got the opportunity to do what I wanted to do. Erica's saying I'm in that same boat. And do you know not only shame can come from that, but guilt? There are many of us who live with an internalized, unconscious guilt that if I get to a level of success that other members of my family have not, then what does that mean? Are they going to be looking to me to take care of them? If I fail, are they going to be the chorus in the back saying, "I told you that idea was crazy. Who did you think you were?" There can be a lot of fear around responsibility, and not necessarily because of the failure, but because what does the success mean? Now I got to keep it up. Now I have to be the poster child in the family of success. That's a lot of pressure for anyone to be under. But if you are the first in your family, you might be carrying a whole lot of shame that's not yours. It's internalized. If you ever heard in your life experience, well, who do you think you are? And nobody told you to go all the way off there where you weren't around family to try to do X, Y, Z. And now you want to cry and complain that it's hard. We told you not to do that in the first place. You really have to take a look at, is this my shame? Or is this a shame that I'm carrying? Am I afraid of the responsibility because I never saw it? I didn't have examples of what it looked like. So I'm not even really sure that I have it within me to hold this vision, this goal, this thing up. Take a look at the internalization of other people's shame. And some of the shame is absolutely valid because we live in a society that will consistently tell us, who do you think you are dreaming so big? Who do you think you are having that kind of vision for your life? I mean, it hasn't even been so long ago that people even questioned who we thought we were, trying to educate ourselves based upon the particular demographic that you fall into, whether it is a demographic of Black, a woman. Who do you think you are? And we still have that in our consciousness right now. Who do you think you are? And sometimes the conversation comes from people who look just like you. You think too much of yourself. How dare you try to do that? You forgot where you came from. All of those kinds of conversations did not just start now. They started so long ago that we may not have, again, a conscious memory of it. But if there's a root that we can heal, then perhaps we can push past that. And so if you also are in that point in your life where you don't really think that you have a sense of self or a self identity, who are you? If you don't know who you are, how are you supposed to know where you're going? And if you waffle between what the world says you are and how you know yourself to be, you might also be challenged with making appropriate choices. So is the choices that you're making in your life, are they coming from the you that is really you, or is it coming from the you that everybody else thinks you're supposed to be? You have to be clear on that. You have to be clear on that. And so many of us have this internalized shame based upon who other people think we are. How many of us have hobbies and things that we love that nobody else knows about because we are afraid of what other people will say, their judgments, their criticism? I can remember being a teenager and liking particular types of music. But I didn't want my peers to know that because they may not have thought that I was as black as I claimed myself to be because I happen to like rock music, or I happen to like country music, or I happen to like things that were outside of the social norm. How many of us still have things that we like and engage in that we don't let anybody else know because we don't want people to think that we're weird or that we're outside of what other people's vision for us is. I like the weird people. I like the nonconformists. I like the people who, you know, march to a different drum, because those are the people who truly, truly know who they are and are comfortable in their skin. So many of us are learning how to be comfortable in this skin that makes so many other people uncomfortable. That's why I say the voice that you hear the loudest has to be your voice. But if you have all of these other voices from the past, from this developmental stage, it can be challenging to do that. So this week, this is what I want you to do. I want you to think of all of the ways in which you feel that voice that says, am I being good? Am I being normal? Am I meeting a standard? What is my self value? How do I feel about myself? Am I being harsh on myself? I say all the time, I'm my harshest critic. And what am I really criticizing? I'm criticizing the things that I've been told, the things that I believe, the things that other people may have dropped down in my spirit, instead of connecting to who I am. We've been talking about trusting ourselves. We've been talking about feeling safe in our own skin. This lines up with that. So we've got to face our shame. We've got to face our shame. And shame is really about any place where you feel you're wrong or you haven't done something the way that you think it's supposed to be done. And for many of us, it's our entire life. Maybe you've always felt like the outsider. Maybe you've always felt like you had to scratch and claw and create things out of nothing. And somehow you feel like life has been beating you up in ways that other people have not been beaten up. Maybe you're internalizing that as I've had to fight twice as hard to get halfway to where other people are. That is a big one for us, all of my Black brothers and sisters. That's a big one for us. We internalize that. We got to fight. We got to fight. We've got to fight. How much of that have we internalized as there's got to be something wrong with me instead of there is something wrong with the system? We have to start telling ourselves the truth. Where do you feel wrong? Where do you feel like you're not measuring up? Where are you being the helicopter parent over your, behavior right now, where you're looking at everything and criticizing and judging every little thing that you're doing? Or where are you neglecting yourself in this moment in your life? Where have you abandoned you? And are you carrying shame about that? So much of what we hear nowadays is people in self-care. I'm not taking care of myself, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. If any of that is attached to shame, then your choices may not be coming from a healthy place. And then the shame gets, multiplied and magnified. Dang, I didn't get my nails done today because I don't care about myself. Or dang, I didn't rest today, so I'm neglecting myself. Your self-care should be as easy breezy as possible and not tied to neglect or abandonment. Your attention to detail in your life, again, should not be tied to shame. And if I don't do these things, if I don't have a list and I don't check that list every single 5 minutes, then I'm not going to be on my A game. And if I fail to do something today, then that means I didn't have a great day. Let me tell you something. Any day that you are breathing, any day that you are present is a great day. How harsh are you being on yourself? Or can you get to a point where you are balancing the two, where we can check in, make sure that we have focus, but also leave room for ourselves to be free and not criticize and judge every little thing that's going on in your life. You already had that experience when we were kids. We've already had the experience of being put in the corner because we didn't do something or we did something. We've already had the experience of being punished for our behavior. Can we release ourselves from that now? We've already had the experience of having every single thing in our life being so regimented and somebody else standing over us, making sure we're good little girls or good little boys. We already had that experience. Let's not replicate it now as adults. Let's find the healthy balance. And so, as we always do, let's take a deep breath so that we can reassure ourselves that we are in full control and that we are able to balance out those two energies, where we don't have to feel or carry other people's shame and make it our own. The goals and the visions that you have for yourself do not have to be attached to not enoughness, didn't measure up, somebody else did it better, or someone else knows more than I do. Your visions, the goals, the reality that you have for yourself, let it rest in a healthy balance of, this is still important to me, so I'm going to give it focus. And because I'm giving it focus, I also have to give myself some rest. And I can marry the two of those things from a place of love. And I can eliminate from my life those things that make me feel wrong or that pressure me into believing that I'm not measuring up. So let's take a deep breath for all of us who are pushing ourselves into that helicopter parent behavior where you are criticizing and judging everything that you do, and you're not walking away with feelings of grace, with feelings of enoughness. And for all of us who have walked away from particular things in our life that need attention, like your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. As I always say, your spiritual practice should not make you feel worse. It is supposed to elevate you and expand. So, anywhere in your life that you have or you are engaging in behavior that is supposed to make you feel free and at peace, if it is making you feel even more frazzled, I need you to let that go and move away from it. I need you to calm your nervous system in this right now moment by breathing deeply and with intention. That all of those experiences from the past, we already went through those things. And we are becoming more and more consciously aware of when we are replicating those experiences. And it is our desire in this right now moment to move away from that and to align ourselves with the ability to meet our needs appropriately, with love, with care, with affection. That our request now to know ourselves, to be ourselves, is based upon the me that I am now, not the me that I'm trying to be based upon other people's opinions, judgments, or expectations. I am being me for me. And that might mean that I got to release the naysayers, the judgment holders, or other people who expect me to live up to their expectations. In this right now moment, as I breathe in and as I breathe out, I am becoming more and more aware with my needs. I am becoming more and more aligned with identifying when I need love when I need affection, and that even this life that I built for myself, where I am so extremely independent, I recognize and realize that I need others. I need others who are supportive. I need others who are also on a journey of self reflection, so that we are not taking from one another, so that we can stand with and hold each other accountable with love and without judgment. That I no longer have to fear rejection because I am being my true self. And if there are individuals who are holding me to a standard and they are willing to reject me, then I am willing to let them go because I don't need that in my life. I've already had that experience. There is no need for me to experience abandonment and neglect over and over. So at this moment, that is diminishing from my life. No more neglect, no more abandonment, no more judgment, no more inappropriate interactions in my life. Been there, done that, got the t shirt, threw it away because I don't need it. As I stand right now, I am becoming so much more aware of what I need when I need it and my ability to give myself all that I need. And I am also learning appropriate ways of requesting love, care, and attention from others who are equally emotionally and mentally stabilized, so that we don't get into some negative attachments that don't serve either one of us. I recognize where I may have done that in the past, where I may have attached myself to people, to places, environments, experiences that I thought were pouring into me that wound up taking from me instead. And I recognize that I can identify those places and spaces for myself now, and I decide to not engage in that behavior because there is no lack within me. I am not starved for attention. I am not thirsty or dehydrated for love and affection because I give it to myself. And I go into those places where it is given freely. And I recognize that my caregivers did what they could with what they had and at the level of their consciousness at that moment. And if there were places and spaces where they fell short, then I am learning to forgive them. And I am creating the same compassion for them that I have for myself. And they don't have to be the villain in my story, but they can absolutely be part of the wisdom that I am creating for myself now, so that I do not replicate those experiences. My people do, my people did, and my people will continue to be who they are at their level of consciousness. The same is true for me, and I am choosing to expand that consciousness so that I am honoring myself and I am honoring them. I am calming my nervous system so that I don't feel anxious, so that I am no longer feeling deprived, so that I am no longer telling myself that I am wrong or that something is wrong with me and somewhere within my being I'm not enough. I am now going to, with every inhale and exhale, confirm and declare that I am enough as I am. I am enough as I am, and it is not necessary for me to replicate any experience of pain that I may have had in my past. I can heal those wounds. And I don't have to carry the shame of what I did not receive. And I can absolutely transform that into wisdom and give it to myself now. And so that is the way that I like to think of the places and spaces where I used to carry shame. That's my wisdom place. I learned something from that experience. Those times when my caregivers and even the relationships that I willingly got into, those times and those places that I didn't receive what I know now that I deserved, I can look at that as wisdom. I don't have to be ashamed of the relationships that I got into and was in for far too long. I don't have to be ashamed of the visions and the goals that I set for myself that I haven't yet obtained, because I can always create a new vision and a new goal for myself based upon the me that I am now. I can give myself reassurance. I can give myself love. I can think of myself as healing instead of battered and bruised and damaged and broken. I'm healing. And as we all know, as you are going through the healing process, sometimes you have setbacks. Sometimes the healing doesn't occur in the time frame that we would like for it to. It doesn't mean that the healing stops. It may mean that there are additional things that you need for your healing. And so think about, what does my healing process look like for me now? I'm going to always ask y'all what your spiritual practice looks like, because maybe I need to engage in more of that pours into me instead of the practices that pull from me and make me think that something is wrong. So maybe my prayer life needs to look different. Maybe my meditation life needs to look different. Maybe what I'm reading, the people I'm spending my time around, maybe my environment needs to change so that I am healing everywhere. So I have more opportunities to heal than I have opportunities to pick at that scab. Because sometimes that's what's happening to us and we're not always aware of it. Sometimes the relationship that you're in is picking at a scab. It's triggering you. Sometimes the job that you're in is picking at that scab. It's triggering you. It's reminding you of those past experiences that you've had and you're in it. And other people might be picking at the scab that you've tried to heal. You have to make the choice. Am I going to stay in it, remain in it, or am I getting more into a healing place? Sometimes it's your family, sometimes it's your friends, sometimes it's you. And if you are picking at the scab by consistently telling yourself you're wrong, you don't have this, you don't have that, how are you supposed to heal in that kind of environment? Maybe it's time for you to change up the prescription and the healing plan. You know, if you are hurt or sick and you go and you sit with your doctor and this is your treatment plan. What does your treatment plan look like for your heart? What does your treatment plan look like for you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically? If you don't have a clear treatment plan, then you are at the mercy of things coming into your experience and hopefully doing some healing work, but they may not be. So we have to look at the shame that we are carrying and how are we going to heal it? How are we going to transform it so that the perspective that we now have, because we can't do away with the experiences. We can't say that it never happened because that don't work. Avoiding the reality doesn't work. How do you hold the reality and see it differently? By transforming the shame into wisdom. I went through something that at one time I was ashamed of, that at one time made me feel like I was wrong. Now I see it for what it is, and I'm pulling from it some wisdom, some lessons, so I don't ever have to replicate and go through that thing again. So if you are in your life journey and you keep wondering, why does the same thing keep happening? Have you taken time to look at your treatment plan, which is your spiritual practice? Have you taken time to look at the root of the issue, which is the origin and the pathology of what's been going on? And are you the one that is keeping this cycle going by expecting everything else around you to change so that you get your healing? If we keep thinking that other people, other experiences, other places are going to be the key to our healing, let me know how that works for you, because you are the key to your healing. You have to decide, how am I no longer going to carry these memories, these experiences as things for me to be ashamed of, and transform it into things that I can say, I made it through. I was watching a new TV show, and someone was relaying their past experiences, and everybody had this look on their face like, oh my God, you went through all of that? And it just kind of rolled off of her tongue. Yeah, I've been through this, this happened, that happened, that happened. And other people were like, well, how can you just say it so nonchalantly? And she's like, because that's not who I am. That's what I experienced. That's what I went through. And she wasn't saying it to shock anyone. She was just saying it as, these are experiences I've gone through. So this is why I am the way that I am, because I went through it. But it doesn't mean that that's who I am. It means this is the wisdom that I carry with me. This is the wisdom that I carry with me. And so I'm not talking about something I read in a book. I'm not talking about a story somebody's told me. I'm talking about something I've lived through and that I see it differently now. It's not a measure of who I am and my self-value. My self-value comes from me and how I choose to carry my life experience. And so I am hopeful. I am hopeful this week. Something is going to come up for you, some memory, some experience, some trigger. And I'm hopeful that you will be able to look at it and say, wait a minute, am I punishing myself by only seeing this thing as something that caused me harm, that caused me pain? Doesn't mean that you forget about the pain. It means that you are able to look at it differently. Daddy didn't show up the way that I needed him to show up. And guess what? I'm still beautiful me. And so the wisdom that I gain from that is, I show up for me, because I know what it feels like when people don't show up. So I make sure I show up for me. Mommy was always in my face, making sure that I did things right. And it makes me anxious to make choices. Guess what I gained from that? I don't have to be a worrywart like my mother. I can trust myself in ways that my mother never trusted me and never trusted herself. And so the wisdom that I gained from that is not that there was something wrong with me. That lady that worried all the time probably didn't trust herself. I don't have to take that from my mother. I can trust myself, free her up from ever having to worry about me again. And I don't have to adopt and internalize her anxiety, her fear. I believe in me. And that is the wisdom that I take from my mother's anxiety, that I don't have to live like that, because I saw what it did to her and how it limited the way that she lived her life. You know, my siblings, and these are just examples that I'm giving. My siblings are all over the place. They never completed anything in their life. I'm always bailing them out of trouble. Guess what I can take from that pain? Y'all are grown, and I don't have to be your adult caregiver. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to be there and provide you the boundaries that you probably didn't have in your life, because I recognize we grew up without boundaries, because if we had some, we wouldn't be trying to parent each other as adults. So I'm going to establish some healthy boundaries for myself so that y'all can see what it looks like when a full-fledged grown adult has healthy boundaries. Baby sister, you take care of yourself. Older brother, you take care of yourself. We have to decide the choices that we are going to make for our adult selves because our inner children need it. They need it, they desire it. And anytime you have feelings of not enoughness, it's your inner children saying, hey, this is something that we've always felt. Can you give us something now so we no longer have to feel that way? You are so welcome, Giselle. You are so welcome. And so I hope that what you take with you this week is I am changing my fear, my shame into wisdom. I got something. You didn't go through it just to go through it. You went through it for it to show you something, for you to teach you something. Stand firm in how you feel about yourself and your self value because shame will take you out of that. Shame will have you believing the lie that there's something wrong with you. Shame will have you believing that you deserve to be punished. Shame will have you believing that you can't do the things that you believe and know that you can do. And just like I had that revelation this week about being afraid of the responsibility of success, that's shame telling me that I can't do what I know I can do. And so I got to do some work. I know y'all got to do some work. We're going to all do some work. And so, all throughout this week, hopefully through my social media and perhaps again on YouTube and Facebook, I'm going to give us some tools and some tips that can support us in keeping our word in what we said today, that today is the last day, that we are going to let shame, wrongness, and not enoughness get in the way of who we know ourselves to be in this right now moment. You are so absolutely powerful and strong and beautiful. And anytime you needed to hear that when you were younger and you didn't hear it, you can give it to yourself now. In those places and spaces that you are feeling not enough, tell your little people, I got you now. There is no reason for us to replicate anything that we went through when we were younger. I got you now, and I'm going to give you what you need. If you are asking for love, give it to yourself. If you know, and you better, that you need love throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, then call me. I will absolutely love to give you some love. Schedule some office hours with me, whether we've talked before or not. If you feel like you are in a moment of break the emergency glass, I need some love, and maybe you don't know how to say that. You don't have to say those exact words to me. Reach out to me. You know, if you go to my website, all of my contact information is there. If you set up some office hours with me, we can come up with a safe word, whatever it is. I don't want anyone out here feeling like they are abandoned, neglected, or don't really know what to do, what to say, and when to say it to yourself. We have got to support one another. We do it every Sunday at 1 o'clock. Doesn't mean that this is the only time and the place that we can do it. It could be one word, help. It could be another word. Heck, sometimes I need it. So text me. If you are feeling great about yourself and you want to share it, please share some of that with me. We have got to be the safe space that we needed when we were younger. Our little people are asking for it. Our inner children are asking for it. Let's give it to ourselves now. If you want to join a community, the Evolve community, that is the subscription based plan that I have. We are going to be doing more and more as this community grows and grows because as we go through these developmental stages, you're going to start having some memory. If you don't remember what was going on when you were 18 months, trust me, by the time you get to be 3, 6, 12, 10, memories are going to start to come up and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, when I was 12, let me tell you what happened. And you are going to see how that resonates with you as an adult now. So joining the Evolve community where we take a deeper dive might be where you receive the help that you desire. I don't want any of us to be out here alone. You are so welcome, Miss Erica. You are so welcome, Miss Marissa. I absolutely adore and love each and every single one of you. Next week, we are going to be talking about no, because you have to have a strong no. If you are living in the year 2023 and you don't have a strong no, I don't know what's happening to you. I don't know what's coming into your experience. I don't know how much money you are putting out that you don't need to be putting out. I don't know. If any one of you are doing things that you're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this, then you probably don't have a strong no. And you have to develop it. Think like a 2-year old. That's all they know is the word no. And so many of us, we got to work on our no and recognize how that can be one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself. And also recognize what happens to you when you hear no. I don't like it. I'm an Aries. Don't tell me no. Don't like to hear it. And so next week, we'll talk about that. This week on the social media, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, we're going to continue to talk about shame, how it shows up, and what we can do to get it out the way. Is it ever going to be eliminated? No, but we can absolutely work to diminish it so it's not the first place we go, and it's certainly not the place where we want to stand and land. I love you guys. I hope you have an amazing rest of your Sunday. I hope you all are adjusting well to daylight savings time. I hope as we go through the week, we recognize that might be affecting us and that we do what we need to do to take care of ourselves. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I'll see you again next Sunday. Have a great one, y'all. Love you. Bye.